I want to introduce Jake Martin. He is a certified financial planner with the Joseph Group, parent at SJMS. This is their second year. He's got two children here, and we're just really excited to have his knowledge and expertise as we understand more about the Emmaus Road Scholarship and all the great things that it can do for us as a school, but also how it benefits us as taxpayers as well.
Right. Great. Yeah. Thank you for the introduction, Melanie. And, I know we got a small group here today, so I'd love to just keep this conversational. So if any of you have questions as I go through this presentation, don't feel free to just pause and interrupt me, and I can answer questions as we go along here. So yeah, as Melanie said, I've got two kids, one in lower elementary, LE1, and then my younger one's in CH2, our second year here. I'm a huge fan of this school, and just anything I can do to try to boost the school in any way, I'm all about, which is why we're here today. I'm not affiliated with the board or anything else. I'm just an interested parent who wants good things for this school. So let me dive into the core of what we're here to talk about. Pull up my presentation and share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see my screen now? Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. So we're here to talk about this tax credit, and most people don't get real excited when they hear about a tax credit. But hopefully I can transfer my joy and passion about this credit to the rest of you, because I think it has just such an incredible potential for what it can do for the school. So this tax credit is called the Ohio Scholarship Granting Organization Tax Credit. And fundamentally, what you're doing is just redirecting your tax dollars that you're already going to pay from the state of Ohio to the school of your choice. So that, at the end of the day, that's really all we're doing. But I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of how this works. So just real quick, before I get into anything, I want to be clear. I am a financial advisor, but I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. So I'll be getting into a few tax topics here, but please don't construe any of this as personal tax advice. If you have a tax advisor, I highly encourage you to talk to that person before you make any decisions here. But I'm going to just try to give you a broad level information about how this tax credit works and a few potential pitfalls that you can run into. So, did we have a question? Okay, maybe just some background noise. So first of all, I always like to start with why. Why do we care about some random tax credit in Ohio? And yeah, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. If any of you know Simon Sinek, he wrote this book about a decade ago called Start With Why. And so understand do this is just key to why I'm so excited about this, and hopefully you will be too. At the end of the day, if you could ask the state of Ohio to just give more money to St. Joseph Montessori, wouldn't you do it? I mean, if it didn't cost you anything and you could just get the state to give more money to the school, that seems like a no-brainer. And if all of us can get organized and do this together as a community, imagine what we could do if we could free up an extra 50,000, 100,000 or more for the school every single year. So this is why I'm really excited about the potential of this tax credit. Is there's some real dollars here that we can free up for the school. So let's talk a little bit about how this actually works. So again, it's called the Scholarship Granting Organization Tax Credit. I want to just quickly note that there's a difference here between a tax credit and a tax deduction. A credit is literally dollar for dollar. What you give to the school, you get right back in equal number of dollars on your tax return. So it literally costs you nothing. When you make a donation to the school, you get that same amount back on your tax return. Not a deduction, actually a dollar for dollar return back on your tax return. So as far as how much can you do, individuals can do up to $750. Couples can do up to $1,500. And again, that's money that you gift. I'll talk through how you do it, but that ultimately will go to the school, and then you get that amount back on your taxes. In order to get the money to the school, though, it can't go directly to the school. It has to go through something called a scholarship granting organization. There's a whole list of them through the state of Ohio. But the one that SGMS is registered with is the one through the Catholic Diocese. It's called the Emmaus Road Scholarship, Scholarship Granting Organization. So if you want to make a gift to SGMS, you got to go through the Emmaus Road Scholarship. I'll show you here in just a minute how you can do that. So first have to make a gift there, and then from there it gets redirected back to SGMS. What does it do? The scholarship specifically has to be to fund scholarships. So some people ask, well, can I do to any school? And technically, no. Any public school that doesn't have any scholarships associated with it would not be eligible. So this is just any private or parochial, school that has a scholarship need or a tuition that can be covered over via scholarship. So that's who's eligible. And then the other question is, when did this start? This is actually a relatively new tax credit. It was just passed back in late 2021. Say most schools didn't even know about it in 21. So some schools started to get organized last year. I heard about it last year. But it sounded too good to be true. So I just tried it myself before I got too excited about it. And sure enough, it was as advertised. So here we are in 2023. I would call this really the second main year that this has really been in place. And it's not scheduled to end. So potentially this can just keep going until the state of Ohio decides to cancel this tax credit. So potentially this is renewable year after year, as long as this tax credit stays in place. So let's just do some quick numbers, because that always helps me to think about what the potential is here. So if we can get just 10 families to participate at $1,500 each, you just quick math, that's $15,000 that we can redirect to the school. Melanie, I don't know how much we raised through some of the fundraisers, but I know we put a lot of effort to raise money through the mum sale and some of the other drives. This is just such an easy way to get a quick $15,000 to the school, and it takes very, very little effort. So that's what I love about this. Melanie, help me. If you just put that in context, how much do we typically raise with some of those other fundraisers?
So the mom sale is about $2,500. It's a lot of work for about $2,500. It's same for the spaghetti dinner is around $2,500. Spring flower sale, $2,500.
Right.
The gala is a little bit of a different beast. We typically bring in around $40,000 for tuition assistance, and then another $30,000 to $40,000 for general fund. Annual fund average is about $60,000 a year, and that's a full year program.
Got it. Yeah. And these are all great things. I certainly don't want to dissuade the school from doing any of them, but I have to imagine they take a lot of hours and a lot of effort to pull all of these things off. So when we've got an easy opportunity here like this to pull money into the school, gosh, I really want to take advantage of it, to just help with that fundraising effort for the school. So if we can get 66 families to participate, that's $100,000 for the school. And we have, I think, around 200 families that go to the school. If we could get the entire community to participate, we're talking about $300,000 or more. And this doesn't just stop with our school's community. If you've got grandparents or siblings that live in Ohio, basically anyone that lives in Ohio that cares about SGMS can do this. I mean, so 300,000 is kind of the big goal in my mind, but it can potentially even be higher than that. So just huge potential here. And especially because it can happen year after year, this can really add up over a series of years. So that's why I'm trying to get everybody as excited about this as I can, because each one of us can only do $750 or $1,500, depending on your family situation. Okay, so hopefully, go ahead, Melanie.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a question in the chat, and it says this might be covered later, so if it's too early in the presentation, is it a refundable tax credit? Say we donate $1,500, but it causes us to exceed the amount of taxes we owe in Ohio, would we get that difference back on the tax return? And I know you're going to cover that later, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I will, but let's just take that right now. That's a great question. It's an astute question. This is a non-refundable tax credit. So that means that you have to have a tax liability of at least the amount that you give to the school in order to get that back on your tax return. So to your point, if you don't have enough taxable income or taxes owed to the state of Ohio, you won't get the full amount back. So that's a critical thing to check before you actually do it. Because if you think that, gosh, I'm not going to have $1,500 of taxes paid to Ohio, then you'll only get back the portion that you actually do owe to Ohio. Hopefully I'm answering that question. I'll touch on that again here later in the presentation, but non-refundable, it's not a refundable credit. Okay. So next point is just how do you do it? Hopefully everyone who's listening is excited now about what this potentially can do. So, how do you actually go through it? So I mentioned earlier, you've got to do this through the Emmaus Road Scholarship through the Catholic Diocese. And you have to do it before the tax filing deadline. This is actually an interesting change that just happened this year. Previously, you had to do it by the end of the calendar year. So kind of the December rush that most people think about with their charitable giving, that used to be true. You actually are able to do it all the way up until your tax filing deadline in April. So if you want to wait until March or even early April, potentially you can do that. I'm trying to encourage as many people to get it done now. It's clearer and cleaner if you have it done in the same tax year. So personally, that's what I'm going to do. But technically, you do have until March or April to do it. I'm just going to pop out of the presentation briefly, because I want to show you how easy this is. Let me go over to the Catholic Diocese website. So it's just emmausroadscholarship.org. You don't have to memorize that. You can just search for Emmaus Road Scholarship in Google. It's the first hit right here. This will take you to the diocese website for the Emmaus Road Scholarship. You just click right up here and make a gift. See if it'll respond. Here we go. And then this is the form. This is literally all it is. You just put in your name, your spouse's name if you're married and you're filing jointly, email, phone, mailing address, home parish, and then the donation amount. You can either do the $750 for individuals, $1,500 for couples, or some other amount if one of those two doesn't make sense for you. One key point I want to pause on here is that if you don't designate SJMS as the receiving school, then these funds will just be dispersed by the diocese, and then the diocese gets to choose where it goes. And so that it may end up in any number of places that the diocese chooses for it to go. So when you fill out this form, very important to search for St. Joseph. Hang on, I guess it's got to have a period. There we go. So St. Joseph Montessori, make sure that is selected. That will ensure that the funds will get redirected back to SJMS ultimately at the end of it. And then you just put your credit card number in and hit submit. It's literally that easy. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It could not be easier to make this kind of gift. Let me jump back to the presentation now.
While you're there,
yeah.
Jake, actually, one thing that is new that just started with the diocese this year is you can spread your payments out too. So I went in this morning and actually made my gift for this year. And then while I was in there, I went ahead and set up my gifts for next year so that I'm spreading it out through the entire year versus doing it all at one time, which is great. So you can do a recurring gift and it'll just debit your account every month for whatever amount you designate.
Yeah, fantastic. I hadn't noticed that. So you just click right there and then you choose the frequency that you want it to come out and away you go. So really nice option there, especially if cash flow is an issue. If you're like, hey, I don't have $1,500 just laying around, then you can spread it out monthly to make it less of a cash flow issue. Okay, really great point. Let me jump back to the presentation now. Okay, so once you make the gift through the website, you'll get a receipt from the diocese. Important to retain that receipt because the state of Ohio may ask you for proof of the donation. So you just want to be able to provide that later to justify the tax credit that you'll get later. I'll show you copies of what that will look like. There is also a paper form that you can print. So if you have any relatives or anyone who's not real web savvy, or if they prefer not to put credit card information on the web, you can fill out a paper form and mail it in. Again, the key point is just to make sure you designate SJMS as the receiving school. I would spell it all out. So St. Joseph Montessori School, just to make sure it's clear of where that should go. So hopefully this is all clear as far as how to do it. Feel free to chime in if I can be any more clear about that. Let me move on to just a few objections that I've gotten as I've talked to people about this. A few things that I've heard people say is, hey, I can't afford to give anything more right now. I'm already paying tuition. I've already got all these other expenses. I just can't afford to do another $1,500. I've also heard the objection of, hey, I already give a lot to this school, both in my time and my giving and my tuition. Why do I need to be doing more? Aren't I already doing enough? And then finally, if you are already making gifts to the school, maybe through some of the other fundraisers that Melanie already mentioned, does that qualify? Can you use that toward this tax credit? So let me quickly tackle each of these. For the first two, the big thing that I would mention is that at the end, once you file your taxes, you're going to get every single dollar that you donate to the school back on your tax return. Again, with the qualifier of assuming you've got enough taxable income to get it back. So at the end of the day, this doesn't actually cost you anything. It's just a matter of being able to push it out and wait a few months to get it back on your tax return. So if feeling like you can't afford anything, hopefully that's not actually an issue, because we're not really asking you to give any more. We're just asking you to redirect the tax dollars that you are already going to pay from the state to the school. And then as far as if you're already making charitable gifts to the school, unfortunately, that doesn't qualify for this tax credit. Like I mentioned earlier, it has to be done through the Emmaus Road Scholarship. So if you're making gifts directly to the school, that may very well may be a tax deductible thing on your taxes, but it won't count for this tax credit. Hopefully that is clear. Let me jump into a few potential pitfalls that can happen here. I already mentioned earlier that you may need to provide proof of your gift to the state of Ohio. I also mentioned that you have to make sure that you designate the school as the recipient. Again, it'll just go to any school the diocese deems they deem should have the funds if you don't designate SJMS. And then as we talked about earlier, you've got to have taxable income at least greater than your gift through the SGO. Let me just show you what the gift receipt looks like. This is the letter that I personally got from the diocese after I made our gift. So you can see here, I did it in December of last year. I got it about a week later in the mail, just stating that I made the gift. And then around tax time, I got this letter from the state of Ohio just saying, hey, we need a copy of your receipt, which is what I just showed you. So I just had to mail that into the state of Ohio to confirm the tax credit. So two things just to be aware of as you go to file your taxes. And then to get back at how much taxable income do you need to have to really have enough to get the full amount back? I did the math here. Here are the current tax brackets for the state of Ohio. So kind of depending on where your income falls, you'll fall into these various brackets. And as an individual, if you're going to do $750 as an individual, you need to have at least $40,000 of taxable income in the state of Ohio. So I want to be clear, that's different than gross income. Keep in mind, gross income is before any taxes or any retirement deferrals have happened. What we're talking about is taxable income at the end of the day, how much you actually pay taxes on each year. It's got to be a little $40,000 or more for individuals. For couples, if you're going to try to do the full $1,500, it's got to be about $68,000 or more. Again, if you think you're going to be anywhere close to these thresholds, I would make sure you either check your tax return from last year, or make sure you talk to a tax professional to see if you qualify for the full amount. If you're well above these thresholds, you probably don't need to worry about it. Okay, let me keep going. We're just about here. Let me just finish up by just restating again, this really isn't another donation to the school. It's really simply taking tax dollars that you're already going to pay to the state of Ohio and redirecting it to the state, back to the school. We're not asking for an extra gift. We're just asking you take those tax dollars that you're already going to give to the state and make sure it goes to the school instead. At the end of the day, schools always can use more funding, whether it be for staff salaries, for facility management, for programs, whatever it is, the school will be better off if we can direct more funding to the school. And this really only works to the extent that we all participate. My family can only do $1,500. Each of your families can only do up to $1,500. The more the more of us that participate, the more this really starts to have an impact. So hopefully I've gotten you all excited about how to do this and how it works. Please you spread this message. Talk to whoever else you know at the school about how this works, and feel free to direct them to me. I'm happy to talk to anyone who's interested about how this can work. Just a few next steps. Again, I encourage you to go ahead and do the Emmaus scholarship donation now. This is the time of year to get your giving done. So just go to that website, fill out the form, submit it. Again, technically you have until March or April. So I'm probably going to do one more of these sessions in February or March next year to catch a few more people if we can. But now is a great time to just take care of it. Talk to your tax advisor if you think you're going to be close to those thresholds that we talked about before. And again, just spread the word. Again, it doesn't have to be just SJMS families. Your grandparents, siblings, friends, anyone else who lives in Ohio can participate with this. I've got my contact information here. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me. I'm also in the Blue Book directory, so you can find me there. Again, happy to talk to anyone who has any questions. So I'll wrap up there. Any questions I can answer that, or anything that was unclear? Seeing some heads shake. That's good. Susan, I saw you jump on after we got started, so thanks for joining us. I appreciate you jumping on the call here.
I was muted.
And if anybody has any questions, oh, sorry, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I was just going to also say, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. I can talk to you about the differences between giving to the annual fund or giving to the SGO and what that means from a donation standpoint. As Jake mentioned, they are separate. And, with the annual fund donations, you are eligible to do it as a tax deduction if you're able to itemize your taxes, but it is not a credit like the Emmaus Road Scholarship is. We also tested it last year. It worked for us. And we raised over $12,000 last year with the Emmaus Road Scholarship, and we're really hoping to exceed that by far this year.
And Melanie, remind me, I know that I know at Brian's previous school, they got really organized around this. Do you remember how much they raised at his last school?
I can look it up quickly. I want to say it was over 100,000.
That's what I was going to say. I thought he said something like $200,000. I mean, this is real. I mean, you can really raise a lot of money if people get excited about this.
Yeah, and it they were one of the top in the diocese as far as donations were concerned. The great thing about it too is the donations go through the diocese, but we work with the diocese to designate which students benefit from it. We prioritize students with the greatest need, but it can go to anyone who's a K-8 student that applies through FACTS for tuition assistance. So it doesn't just have to be students with necessarily a financial need. We obviously fulfill those first, but then if there's funds left over, it can benefit anyone.
Yeah, really great point. Good. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll wrap up here. I will be at Winterfest this weekend just to help people one-on-one with doing this. So anyone can feel free to come and find me. I'll just have a little booth set up in the school, and hopefully we can get more people interested and participating to ultimately help the school. So thank you all for joining, and I hope everyone participates like I hope you will.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.